Hey, tonight we watched a classic, Phantasm, the remastered Phantasm, American horror film first released in 1979, where the film opens with a guy having sex with a woman in a graveyard. He orgasms, goes, "Wow, that was great." And she's topless. She pulls out a knife and stabs him, and then suddenly changes into this gaunt, weird-looking guy. I mean, odd when the woman you're having sex with turns into a gaunt, weird-looking guy in a kind of what turns out to be a mortician's suit, or just suit, but very mortician-y. And yes, then there's the funeral where Jody and Reggie are burying their friend, the guy, Tommy. And there's a young boy who's riding through the graveyard on a motorcycle. This is Mike. And Mike is Jody's younger brother, who Jody has come home from his successful musical career to take care of because his parents died, I think, in a car accident. 2 years beforehand, and he's been taking care of them. And indeed, during the after the funeral, he goes into the mortuary, where they basically inter the bodies, and there are indeed where his parents are interred. Now, Mike sees a very odd thing. He sees this really tall, turns out it's the guy who the woman transformed into, pick up what is described as like a gigantic, really heavy, Tommy's coffin, and tosses it in the back of the thing and drives off. And this ends up him investigating this, finding all sorts of weird shit. Um, Indeed, an iconic scene of a man in that mortuary room. All these kind of eerie marble walls. Suddenly, this glowing silver orb coming towards him, and knives coming out of it, and stabbing him in the head, and then blood spewing everywhere. There are evil dwarves going around in kind of like hooded cowls and stuff like that, that attack and are snarling and making odd noises. This film, as we're watching, it says, like, I'll say one thing about this. This has an amazing soundtrack to it. It's very John Carpenter kind of minimalist soundtrack of kind of that repetitive tones thing. Of orchestration. It's got great mood, builds great mood with that. And the acting is pretty clunky. It is pretty much, your independent horror movie. Women do not get much of a look in here. The blonde who transforms into what becomes known as the tall man, who pursues Mike, pursues Jody, and Reggie, is there's a couple of other girls who get a few lines, which, weirdly enough, Mike, as the kid, tells them, "No, you're going to take me back," and they do. And then he tells them to stay in the car, and they do. And then they get attacked by an evil dwarf. So they're, you know, they're not. And it does use dwarf. There's another reference to someone being using the R word down the street. So it's, definitely of its time that way. And obviously with how it uses women. Mike is a very the young boy they got for it. He is almost slightly feminine, and he has a very kind of close relationship with his brother, and also a very kind of close relationship with Reggie. So there's an interesting kind of a thing of just kind of sexuality. He's always following his brother Jody. His brother Jody ends up going into the same graveyard with the same blonde girl, and he's like watching sex, and it's like, it's coded as, he's looking. It's like, he gets to see her breasts, but there's a weird thing, and I mean, her transforming into a guy. There's some interesting coding going on there, as well as just kind of worries about the dead and about like what's happened to our parents who are also at this mortuary and stuff like that. So, uh, yeah, yeah, it's one of these definitely like using as very kind of simple effects, but really effectively, and using not great actors, but using them very effectively. Um, Angus Scrim, I think, is the tall man, and he does a good job. And it's like, oh, he's got that kind of very deep subcultural voice, very appropriate. So yeah, yeah, that is Phantasm. It's like, it's a good horror movie. I can see why they went on and made. Well, I don't know if I can see why they made five of them, but I'd be interested to see the other ones. I saw this on Amazon, where frustratingly enough, they don't have number two. They've got number three and I think four and the final, the Ravager one. At least that's the one they have at the moment. So they've got those ones. So I don't know if I'm going to convince Ja to watch the other ones, but I think I would check them out. So yeah, yeah, that's Phantasm, 1979 remastered. All right, more videos later.